gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us today. Now, Mr. Secretary, you were involved, you've said this many times, involved with the decision 15, 18 months ago relative to the initial TARP bailout. You were involved in all that. You thought it was the right decision to make at the time.
Sorry,
coming to Congress asking for the $700 billion.
Oh, I thought it was absolutely essential at that point. Country had no choice.
And this committee has had several hearings on the Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and you were involved in that decision. We have emails that talked about, you were in the loop, you knew what was going on there, you were supportive of what took place with the merger of, with the acquisition of Merrill by Bank of America. Yes or no?
Well, that is right, that at that time, I was part of an effort to try to find a solution, private solution, to Merrill Lynch at that point, and I thought that action at the time was necessary and appropriate, yes.
And today you have said that, you think the initial decision relative to AIG and the payment to the counterparties, you think that was appropriate. You've stated that strongly in your written testimony. You talk about this is in the best interest of the American people.
I do.
We did not act to help foreign banks. We acted because the consequences of failing at that time in those circumstances would have been catastrophic to our economy, American families, and American businesses. You think it was definitely the right decision.
I do.
And the staff that worked for you at the New York Fed would be in agreement with that analysis, that this was so critical, this had to get done. The sky was going to fall, the world was going to end if we did not do what you decided to do relative to the counterparties and the $62 billion that was spent. Is that correct?
I believe it is, but I think there are, to be fair to say, there were those among us involved in this, in each of the institutions involved, Washington, New York Treasury, who were deeply troubled by that choice, were not comfortable with this.
We're comfortable with it, but you thought it was what you had to do at the time.
I believe that, yes.
And it was so important, as you've said in your written and your testimony here this morning, your oral testimony, that this was critical to American families, American businesses. So
I believe that.
It begs the obvious question. Why the secrecy relative to disclosure? If it's that important, $62 billion, why in the heck not disclose it when it's happening, since you've subsequently done that? Why the secrecy? And frankly, why weren't you involved? If it's that critical, if it's that important, why in the heck did you recuse yourself? Why weren't you involved?
Well, again, just to step back a sec, when the Fed disclosed this in March of 2009, I thought it was the right thing to do. And I think reasonable people looking back at this could say, why wasn't that possible sooner? I think that's a reasonable conclusion.
Why wasn't it possible in November when it was all going down?
Right, but all I can say is what I understand and was involved in, and I was not involved in decisions about what to do with that particular transaction, the counterparties or the details. And that's because...
Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe the decision that was made by the folks who work for you at the New York Fed to not disclose until March and not disclose when it was all taking place, do you support that decision?
Congressman, as I said...
Yes or no? I mean, you've said you're for transparency. You said this was so critical, the world was going to end, everything was going to go to, Let
me tell you something something I deeply believe, okay? It is very hard to put yourself in shoes you did not occupy and have really a fair sense to evaluate those actions in that case. And I don't feel like I can put myself in their shoes at that time.
Let me tell you what I think happened.
But I do believe that they acted with great integrity, care, and judgment.
Here's what happened. Mr. Lynch was on the right trail over here. I mean, this is a pattern. We've seen it. You came to the Congress of the United States. You said, "Give us $700 billion of taxpayer money."
I did not do that.
No, I'm saying the government. The government came to the Congress and gave us $700 billion.
Your government. You're president at that time.
I understand. I mean, I didn't say Democrat or Republican. I understand the government. Give us the money. We're going to go buy the troubled assets. They didn't do that. 9 days later, 10 days later, as Mr. Lynch put it out, you were in the room when they told the 9 biggest banks, "We're not going to buy the troubled assets. You're going to take the TARP money."
And that was one of the best decisions, one of the most important decisions.
But understand the pattern. The Congress of the United States was told one thing. 10 days later, entirely different action was taking place.
I don't think that's actually correct. What Congress authorized.
You don't think that Congress passed that bill because they understood that the money that the taxpayers were going to put up was going to be used to buy troubled assets?
Well, as I said, I can't put myself in your shoes, but I think the salient point is that the authority that President Bush asked for gave my predecessor the authority to put capital in banks. And doing that was
Here's the pattern, Mr. Geithner. Mr. Secretary, here's the pattern. The government comes to the taxpayer and says, we need more of your money, we need a boatload of your money, the world's going to end, we're going to do it, we want it for a specific purpose, then they do it for something else. Then they come to the taxpayer and say, we need more of your money, and we're going to use $62 billion of dollars, and they don't disclose to the taxpayer what's going on. This is why we never should have traveled down this road. This unprecedented involvement by the government in the private sector. We've seen it we've seen it with the initial TARP, we've seen it with Bank of America Merrill Lynch, we've seen it now with AIG. I thank the chairman.
Okay. The gentleman